Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, it's time for book 2 of the Fate of the Jedi series, and this one's called Omen by Christie Golden. This book actually starts us off right after the events of Legacy of the Force, where Ship is trying to find a new master. If you don't know who Ship is a Sith ship called Ship. I don't like this. I think it's kind of stupid. Anyway, but he's trying to find it is trying to find a new master. It goes to what I believe is the one Sith from the Legacy comic books, decides these people are in hiding. I can't wait that long. We need to dominate the galaxy now. And then eventually comes across the Lost Tribe of the Sith, which we're very familiar with now. There's been a lot of publications. I think John Jackson Miller's Lost Tribe of the Sith has already come out by now, so we know about them. And so this is how they're going to get introduced into the storyline. So the Lost Tribe of the Sith, through Ship, realize that the Sith are a dying breed in the galaxy, and they're shocked by this. And they're like, oh, well, we need to, bring the Sith back to power. So then they start working with Ship to slowly commandeer and capture vessels, vessels that are traveling through space, because they're trying to build their own little fleet, their own armada. Well, then you flash forward to today. They had to kind of build a little bit of the backstory before you flash forward to today. And Gisela, I believe is her name, Gisela Horn, Korn and Mirax's daughter, she now succumbs to the craziness, and she thinks everyone's an imposter. And so again, they have to capture her and take her down. And more of young Jedi are being, treated this way. Well, Silgal is really trying to make connections on what happened, and she thinks she knows what they all had in common. They were all, during the New Jedi Order, sheltered inside of the Maul cluster. If you remember, I told you during New Jedi Order, Luke wanted to keep the kids safe, and the Maul cluster is something that no one can figure out, so he had them go hide in there. Well, there are impacts to those actions, though we don't know what yet. Hey, speaking of the Jedi, they're still upset with Kenneth Hamner. Kenneth is just letting the Galactic Alliance do anything and everything. He's just trying to be compliant, is what he's trying to do, but being a little too lenient too. So there's an interesting story going with that, and you as a reader do not like Kenneth at this point. You're like, what are you doing? Come on! And he's kind of ticking you off. Remember, that's his purpose in a way. Meanwhile, Allana Solo goes on a little adventure with Leia and Han, I believe to a zoo or something, or an exhibit, and that's where she finds and adopts a baby nexu. Nexu were in episode 2. It was the big white beast that clawed Queen Amidala while she was on the podium. But it's a baby nexu called, I think it's Agi or Anji. I really don't know how you pronounce it. But I thought that was really cool. We'd seen the Nexu in episode 2. They were a cool creature, but you didn't think it was going to be explored anymore in the expanded universe. And so, yeah, why not a pet killer animal? And I think it's funny because Allana's kind of formed a relationship with this little cub, and Anji, or whatever you want to call it, is going to be kind of its own, their own character as the story goes along. Now, perhaps the biggest news in this book is that Jag and Jaina finally, get engaged. Jag proposes to Jaina. He is in love with her. Remember, he's running the Empire, and he's got a few issues going on with the Empire right now. Of course, the Moffs are not being good. They're plotting and scheming around his back. But you know what? Jaina's always been there for him. She loves him. He loves her, and he proposes. Every fan, the forums blew up when Omen came out. I remember going, OMG, it's going to happen, yay! And I was like, is there any way Zek has a chance? I'm kidding. I was fine with Jag. But the thing was, a lot of people, a lot of fans were just cheering for this moment. They had waited for this moment. They thought, I remember the rumors in the forums like, they're going to get married in the next book. I went, really, that quick? I don't know. They'll probably get married by the end of this, but I said, I don't know if they're going to get married the next book, though. But people were just so ready for this to happen. And I understand why. It's two of people's favorite characters, and they wanted them to be together. Now, this is a fantastic book for one reason. Luke and Ben are traveling through the Cathal sector. Now, I remember reading this and thinking, No, it couldn't be the same one. As you know, I love West End games, and I have all their adventure books. One of my favorite adventure books, one that I've gone through over and over and over again, because I think the story is so interesting, is the Darkstrider campaign. And the Darkstrider campaign, they run through the Cathal Rift. And during that, one of the Force-sensitive characters in the Darkstrider campaign hallucinates and sees, I believe it's red spiders crawling everywhere, and like, ooh, and it's something weird. It was done back in the early 90s. You know, you're like, spiders, really? Not space spiders or something? But I remember as they're traveling through, Ben jumps off the console because he sees little red spiders traveling over it. And that's when I got goosebumps all over my arm, because I realized they are taking stuff from the West End Games source books and putting them in the EU. Now, they've been doing this for a while, that is true, but they were lifting one of my favorite stories, Darkstrider, into the area. And not only that, but they went to go see the Angti monks, who are Force-sensitive monks who Jason had visited way earlier. And there's a funny scene, I think it's the Angti monks, even though Luke encounters a lot of different sects, but I think it's the Angti, where they say, Jason learned, it took Jason only months to learn this, meditation. It takes us years, but he learned it in months. And then Luke goes, okay, well, I'm going to try to learn it. And a few weeks later, he had it down. Luke's just better at everything. I really like that. I really thought that was funny. Like, it took Jason months. Well, it took Luke weeks. Take that again. Luke can just figure out things. But anyway, during this whole thing, they help out the Angti with something, but there's an artifact with the Angti called a codex. And a codex is going to help Luke in his next, where he needs to go, guide him into his next direction. Now, when I saw the codex, I freaked out, because there is an adventure where you, the rebellion, meet the Angti sect, the monks, and they can't touch these holy relics, but they need you to go retrieve something called the codex. You go on an adventure, retrieve the codex, give it to them, then they put it away. They don't touch it because they can't touch these artifacts. But they never tell you what it's for. The adventure says, and that's it. You'll never know what the codex was for. You're like, that's kind of stupid. I remember reading that and going, that's kind of dumb. Well, if you read Omen and you played that adventure book, then you know what your mission accomplished. The codex got to Luke and helped him on his journey. I think that's awesome. I thought that was great. It's like, because can you imagine people who were playing West End games back in the day and playing through these adventures, and not, well, what if one of your adventures, the overall story arc, was mentioned in a book? You'd be like, I did that. I lived that adventure. I mean, this is a whole new level of continuity, right? Is taking adventures and games that people, role-playing games that people played through. They were their characters, and saying, because of that mission, this happened. I think that's wonderful. I was blown away by the connections in this book. Bravo, Christy Golden. Even though I don't think it was her idea, Troy Denning is a West End Games alumni, and he maybe had given her some pointers. But overall, I love that connection. To this day, it remains one of my favorite connections in the expanded universe. There are a lot of little winks and nods I love, and Fate of the Jedi series also gives me one other one way later on that I absolutely adored. But this one, I really enjoyed them going back through a familiar part of the galaxy that we had seen before in the West End game books. Instead of just making up a new area, they brought back the Cathal Rift, which I thought was really ingenious. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention that is relative, because it's going to impact the story later on, is that Tahiri is arrested by Dala because Tahiri killed Pelion, if you recall, in the last series, and that is a criminal offense. So Dala's like, okay, now you're going to trial too, even though it may have happened a little too late. I mean, you should have done this way earlier. She's just trying to be proactive and just go after the Jedi. She's going a little too rough at this point, but that is going to lead to a completely different story that I will discuss later on in another video. See you then.